Hi, my name is Hope Loudon, and I am a Master's of Public Policy from Central European University. I have spent the last several years witnessing and documenting, as well as attempting to resist and raise awareness about the infrastructure of fascism being installed and used in the United States. I am concerned that people continue to rely on an assumption of institutional functionality that is obsolete. We cannot rely on our institutions to protect us. If we could have relied on our institutions to protect us, then they would have done so. The status quo is evidence to the contrary. Donald Trump is not causal, but symptomatic. And this is the end stage of the transition, not the beginning. As Chris Hedges describes him, he is the sort of figure that is vomited up in empires in decline and failed states such as the former Yugoslavia. The same language is used when referring to the United States in Sinclair Lewis's It Can't Happen Here, which imagines what fascism would look like in the United States, and was written against the backdrop of Nazi Germany. I want people to understand that we can't call our representatives, and we can't continue donating money to people who have failed to protect us and who do not work for us, expecting them to engage with institutional mechanisms that no longer function on behalf of our safety and survival. At this juncture, we cannot use any of the old tools in the toolbox of advocacy. I discovered this myself because I was a very good mechanic, and I was working on the equivalent of motor vehicles, and then I found myself confronted with a spaceship. None of my tools remained effective on the situation at hand. To misunderstand the problem is to apply inadequate and ineffective solutions, and to engage with infrastructure and systems that are dangerous even to approach under the new status quo, which is fascism. And so I want you to understand that you no longer live in a free country, nor is it a democracy. The sooner people realize this, the more they can act out of informed consent to engage in solutions that do function, with tangible impacts that will protect them and the people that they love. I want to explain that to you. I think the answer at this juncture is parallel institutions. As I like to say, anything that you rely on the government for, stop and find another way to meet those needs. Unfortunately, we rely on the government for nearly everything. I believe that the United States is undergoing an economic recession at the minimum, if not a depression, and that the unemployment rate, in reality, is closer to 30%. I expect that the difference between being fired, such as from federal employment, as Trump has made it clear he wants to fire up to 70% of the federal government, or to entice them to quit, which is a common strategy against whistleblowers, and to enforce loyalty, and homelessness is extremely thin. A lot of people have bought everything on credit in the United States, in the economy that we have, in which housing and the basics of life are completely unaffordable. And therefore, we can anticipate that people will very soon have their houses repossessed and their cars. People are also going to struggle to meet basic needs. I would not anticipate that we will also continue having such luxuries as clean air and clean water. And to the extent that the regulatory infrastructure previously functioned, expect that it will be completely destroyed. But in the past, and over the last several years, I believe it was already either commandeered to install puppets or gutted in the form of defunding, such that it no longer functions except as a facade, like a carnival cutout for a photo. I'm very, very sorry to have to tell you this. But I don't want people, particularly the most marginalized among us, campaigning for things that do not actually solve their problems and failing to meet their own needs or to find other creative alternatives and or make different decisions with informed consent about how they would like to spend the time that they do have and the resources that they have remaining. Please stop donating to civil society organizations that are captured and that operate as PACs. Please stop engaging with the court system, with elected representatives, and with legislation, as it will not be enforced, provided that it is intended to protect, instead of to inhibit the conditions of life for the people deemed life unworthy of life. Fascists, in the beginning, do not kill with their hands, but with their pens, by creating conditions hostile to the lives of people deemed unworthy, such as the houseless, disabled, immigrants, people of color, and LGBTQ individuals. Please protect yourselves and your community. Engage in mutual aid. Engage in parallel institutions. Anticipate problems that are coming and come up with creative solutions. Think about how to protect yourselves also from targeting and retaliation. Unfortunately, as fascist regimes become more egregious and empowered, and impunity is guaranteed to those who seek to perpetrate and who require consequences in order to behave humanely, things get more dangerous for those of us who seek to resist. And not only does it become legal to persecute and perpetrate against people deemed undesirable, it becomes mandatory. And any attempts to interrupt or assist the victim and foil the efforts of the perpetrator are also punishable. We can see this in the form of criminalization and fines, as well as firing for anyone who seeks to help LGBTQ plus students, or perhaps immigrants, by providing shelter and or water, such as on the border, so that people will not die of dehydration. We're going to see these kinds of things increasing. Please resist anyway. Find ways to bestow dignity, to engage in acknowledgement, and to show solidarity. But be careful and protect yourself. You're no longer in a free country. Please don't continue broadcasting your positions on social media, at least if they're sensitive, and be extraordinarily careful when you organize. We can't simply post advertisements and ask people to raise their hand if they would like to join the resistance. That's a good way to put a target on your back. We're going to have to operate a lot more creatively and carefully. And there are key differences between the United States and Nazi Germany that are extremely difficult and that make us unable to rely on a lot of the models for resistance that function in other societies where technology and resources that belong to the perpetrators are less advanced. The United States is going to continue pouring money and resources into ICE, military, and surveillance. And it is extremely advanced as a surveillance state. Germany was constrained by geography and technology. And I do not expect borders to have the same effect upon the United States. Nor do I expect any form of military resistance to be successful, including for it to be organized among even seemingly democratic nations around the world. I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but I'd rather you have informed consent than to continue operating on an assumption of institutional functionality that is false and wasting time, energy, and resources on solutions that fail. Because the problem is not that we're democratic backsliding. This is fascism. Please let me know if you have questions.